Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard the Wright Flyer. This is your captain, Randy Wright speaking. And as always, I'm joined on our state-of-the-art radio program by my first officer, Jeremy Graypenton. Folks, this will be the final boarding call, so if you please, claim your seats, fasten your seatbelts, kick back, relax, and enjoy the show while Jeremy and I go ahead and delve into the pre-flight checklist, as there really is a lot of news and information to get to before we may fully indulge you with your in-flight entertainment. Well, folks, here we are, just a few days away from where we begin to head into the ballot box to make our ultimate determination as to whom we believe is qualified to be the next president of these United States of America. And unfortunately, we see that the October surprise that happens in every election cycle is occurring with this election cycle. In fact, 2016 is no different than any other election cycle in that regard. And the October surprise that came out for the 2016 election cycle is that Hillary's email scandal continues. As you recall, folks, the email scandal popped up in the beginning part of 2015 when it was discovered that she was essentially keeping a private email server in the Colorado apartment loft apartment bathroom, which I don't know how you can keep something like that secure when it has national security sensitive classified documents on it. It just seems absolutely asinine and insane that she would do this. But it also shows no signs of improving for her. But what it does demonstrate is just how far our electoral process has fallen. Because when you stop and think about it, this sort of thing would have been enough to destroy campaigns in election cycles past. There really is no way around that, folks. It would have. In fact, it shows that we have basically dropped the ball, in a sense, with respect to what the caliber and quality of the candidates are, because neither Trump nor Hillary would have been accepted in prior electoral processes. And unfortunately, this is what we have been warning about now for well over a year, because as you recall, we had our premiere episode, which aired on September 11th of 2015. And basically since that point, we said we knew what Hillary was going to be. But we also warned that Donald Trump wouldn't be worth a hill of beans either. And unfortunately, we see that he was selected as the nominee for the Gutless Opposition Party, or GOP, and that is spelling disaster for the general election process and for the American people in general. And again, the problem that we have is that they both are surrounded by criminality. While there's been an investigation reopened into Hillary Clinton, there has also been an investigation opened with respect to Paul Manafort and his Russian connections. So we see that neither one of the candidates or their surrogates are squeaky clean, and that this is just a problem that has been festering. It continues to get worse. It shows no signs of improving. And again, why is it that we wind up this way each and every time? Well, it's because far too many people have forgotten exactly what it is that unifies us and defines us, both as a nation and as a people. And of course, what I'm speaking of is none other than our shared United States Constitution and the fundamental and inalienable God-given rights that it protects and lays out, and the limitations that it essentially mandates for the proper scope and application of government. And you notice that that's not discussed at all throughout this general election cycle. It hasn't been ever since Texas Senator Ted Cruz dropped out of the race back in May.
You know, we look at this, and the title of this episode is Scandals Continue. Now, Randy, I'm thinking about all of this, all these scandals. We have the scandals with Trump, his background, the lawsuits that have been levied against him.
Mm-hmm.
We can actually, I think it's safe to say that this whole election cycle, this go round, is one giant scandal to begin with.
It is.
Full of many, many, many little scandals that really are irrelevant.
Mm-hmm.
Let's face it, folks, it's irrelevant with the emails with Hillary at this point. It truly is, because that has been the quintessential peak of harnessing everybody's attention. Why is that? It's because it's what the mainstream media wants people to believe and latch onto. It's what the propagandists and the Fabians want people to believe and latch onto. It's also what the Trumpagandists want people to believe and latch onto. The more they create these mini scandals, these little tidbits of quagmires, if you will, the further and further we drift away from our Constitution, our natural rule of law. And it's all done by design. We can go back to any election cycle, probably going back, I would say, as far back as the election cycle after Calvin Coolidge.
Mm-hmm.
And you can look at these things. There's always been scandals, all these different things going on that have been designed to tear people's attention away from the Constitution.
And of course, the reason that you see that happen is what they're trying to do is to basically redefine what we are as a nation and as a people. If they can get the American people to buy into this erroneous notion that the government somehow has empowered them or given them those rights and will take care of them from cradle until grave, they essentially are creating a new feudalist system within the United States. And recall that that's one of the things that Alexis de Tocqueville had said when he was writing about the United States and about socialism. He said that socialism is essentially, and this was back in the early part of the 19th century, that socialism is essentially New Age feudalism because it creates a caste system where they micromanage the facets of our daily lives from cradle until grave, which is the same thing that you saw in feudalism. And of course, that's what Hillary espouses. That's what Trump has espoused for the vast majority of the 70 years that he has spent on God's green earth. And it does not speak to who we are, either as a nation or as a people. And keeping on the line of scandals, we see that Carlos Danger, aka Tony Wiener, Anthony Weiner, had made Huma vanish. You know, the odd thing is this latest round of scandals involves the Wiener, of all things. As we are all aware, Anthony Weiner was forced to resign from Congress in 2011 after he was caught tweeting his wiener to women who didn't want it. He is, of course, the estranged husband of Hillary's left-hand woman, Huma Abedin Weiner. Apparently, there were 650,000 emails on his laptop that went through the Clintons' email server. And again, folks, recall that this was the email server that she kept in a Colorado loft apartment bathroom. And the reason that I harp on this is, how do you protect something like that when it has national security issues on it, all of these highly sensitive documents on it? How is this acceptable? And the truth of the matter is, it is not acceptable. But we see that the finding or discovery of this on the Wiener's machine prompted James Comey to reopen the investigation. Meanwhile, Huma remains nowhere to be found. But with respect to that, I've actually got a video clip from the Communist News Network, aka CNN, where they are openly wondering about that. They literally bring it up on their programming, and I'm going to go ahead and cue that up because I think it's important that you see that, and then we will delve into it a little bit more deeply. But it's shocking. Literally shocking that this is the sort of thing that is happening within our nation, and particularly with respect to our elections. So I'm going to go ahead and cue that up now. Here we go.
Before we get to political fallout, Dana, I'm just curious because we're reporting on Huma Abedin, who's a very, very close, confident surrogate daughter of Hillary Clinton's. Today is day number 3 that she is not on the campaign plane. Do we know why?
We don't know exactly why, except I don't think it would be a bridge too far to have informed speculation that she has now become such a huge part of the story, because the only reason why we're discussing this is because of a computer that her estranged husband had that allegedly had her emails on it. So that is no question, big part of the reason. Maybe she's also dealing with her lawyers. We're just not sure. But I think that the point that you make about her being a second daughter and so forth is right. I know that people have talked about her now for a couple of days and trying to kind of get at the connection here. But I don't think you can overstate how close these two are. And
how close these two are. You know what that tells me? That tells me that we are in the midst of something where someone who is just so close to Hillary has been compromised. And I'll tell you why she's not anywhere to be seen. It's because they're trying to keep a low profile for her. How could she not know about this? Because that's certainly something that's come to the forefront. Her attorney, who I believe goes by the name of Karen, let's see here, it's Karen Burns. She basically said that she didn't know about it, that she didn't learn about it until this Friday. But supposedly, you heard it right there in that video clip, that Huma is like a surrogate daughter to Clinton. Isn't it interesting that they said that? It makes this scandal all the more bizarre to me. Why would those emails be on the Wiener's laptop? Does Huma not have her own laptop? How does this affect her ability to stay in the loop now that she's been separated from the Wiener? What this further demonstrates to me is why we have the laws in place forbidding the use of private email servers and the free dissemination of highly classified or sensitive information. It's because you have no way of safeguarding that information when it's just out there willy-nilly. And of course, with the way that heightened cyber security threats are out there, this only threatens to make things worse in the long run. It means that people like, Russian strongman and autocrat Vladimir Putin could basically gain this sort of information. And we see the sorts of damage that it did to the DNC. Couldn't have happened to nicer people, folks. But at the DNC, when their emails got hacked, and that's how we learned that they had been begging and praying for the opportunity to have Donald Trump be the nominee of the gutless opposition party, or GOP. And the reason for that is they fully well realized that he was the only one that could make Clinton appear human. And of course, what gets me is the timing here. Why was this brought up again now? Why was this not done within the first investigation? This should have come to light back in July. That should have never been the time that they called for an end to that investigation and to say that no charges would be brought, because as we are fully aware, there's clearly something going on. There's no doubt about that. There's no doubt that she violated the law. And again, it shows that they have been violating that old adage that we all know so well, which is the United States is a nation of laws and not of men, meaning that equal protection under the law means that the law should apply equally to me as it would to Jeremy, as it would to any citizen of the United States, irrespective of race, gender, social class, what have you. That is part of the natural law tenets that underpin our entire system of polity and body politique, is that we are all to be treated the same way. We are all to be treated the same under the law, but that has not been what's happening, particularly with Hillary and various others.
You mentioned the timing of this. And in order for propaganda to be effective, it must be timed properly. This goes all the way back. Folks, we've talked about the various different aspects and principles of propaganda for well over a year. In fact, we did a whole entire show on that. Breaking down propaganda, how it's utilized, who's utilized it, and for what means and what purposes. You also bring up the closeness level between Huma, Wiener, Abedin, or Abedin, as I like to refer to her, proper enunciation, and the whore of Babylon herself, Hillary, gut rot Clinton. I'm wondering if, as close as they are, well, could it be on the level of closeness to where Hillary and Vince Foster were? It could come to that. I mean, we surely know that Fabians is part of their motif to off people that seem to get in the way or start to kind of throw a wrench into the works. She says that she doesn't know anything about this or had no idea of this prior knowledge up until Friday of last week. I call bullcrap on that.
Absolutely. I do too.
Because for the simple fact...
There's no way that she couldn't have known that those were on that laptop. And it tells me that, she probably shared the laptop with him, or else he had managed to get access to it as a way to get revenge on her for separating from him after he went out and did the whole Carlos Danger thing. And you see, that's the thing. Why is it that the Democrats are always surrounded with this sort of scandal? In the past, the Republicans could have spoken to this in, much greater detail and to a much greater effect than they can now, because unfortunately, with Donald Trump, we see that he is essentially damaged goods. He is the same sort of thing with the way that he had that video that came out from Access Hollywood in 2005. The reason that sort of thing matters is because if you're going to try and take a moral high ground, it goes back to that passage from Scripture that let he who is without sin cast the first stone, and those who live in glass houses shouldn't cast stones.
Well, it's not only the audio video or the video from Access Hollywood, but you hear clips from the Howard Stern show. Trump was on the Howard Stern show bragging about running a beauty contest. Oh, I walk in backstage and I can do what I want. I'm the owner. There's beautiful women everywhere. Beautiful girls everywhere. Some of them clothed, some of them half naked, some of them fully naked. He says, what are they going to do? Throw me out? I own the pageant. He says, I can do that kind of stuff. And he bragged about it. In fact, he even hinted about abetting some of those women. If he wanted to, he could have taken any one of them to bed with him, and nobody would have been able to say anything. This is why we have, again, these scandals where these individuals, these women, coming out and filing lawsuits against him for sexual harassment. Now, are many, most of them bogus? More than likely. How many times have we seen people want their little 15 seconds of quaff fame? It's just, that's what, but like you're saying, they have the Republican Party, the GOP, they have zero leg to stand on when it comes to this sort of thing, and Hillary Clinton being immoral and unethical, because their champion, the one that's leading the quaffade for them, is culpable of doing pretty much the same thing on the same level.
And recall that back in 1999, he went out and essentially eviscerated people like Paula Jones, people who came out and said that Bill Clinton was engaging in marital infidelity. He said that it was nonsense. And of course, what is it that the Trumpidians say now? It's that, well, that was in the past. You can't go by what he did in the past. You have to go by what he's doing now. Well, if that's the case, then why is he bringing up Bill Clinton? Why is he bringing up the past infidelities that occurred there?
I'll take it a step further.
Mm.
I'll take it a step further. If that's all in the past, then why is he bringing up anything that Hillary Clinton's ever done? And I'm not trying to defend Hillary.
No,
but if all that's in the past,
yeah, you're speaking to
past,
what they're trying to do. You're speaking to the intellectually disingenuous drivel that they are doing, which is, it's not good for the nation. It's not good for our electoral process. And in fact, that's why this 2016 presidential election cycle has devolved into such an ugly, heinous thing that it is. And literally, that should have no place in an open, honest, and above all, free society like that of the United States of America. But that's the problem. When we lose sight of the morality that drives us, that's part of what the frothing at the mouth Fabian socialist leftists are wanting to do when they go forth with the twin cancerous doctrines of political correctness and moral relativism. It's all designed to essentially make it to where we don't know what to focus on because we're unable to differentiate or distinguish between good and bad, right and wrong.
Yeah, and then at that point, when people are incapable of distinguishing that, they look to people, someone with supposed prestige or someone with some clout or authority and power, to tell them what to believe. And that's exactly what's happened with the Branch Trumpidians. And Trump knows this. He's fed off of it. He's feasted on it. He even said it himself. If the rally starts to go a way that I don't want it to go, all I have to do is mention I'm going to build the wall, and the place goes nuts. And this ties into, again, why I say this whole election cycle has the makings of a scandal that will be ultimately revealed after the fact, because that's really how scandals work. They're a lot like conspiracy theories. You start with a little element of truth, and then you build on it, and you shape it to what you want people to believe. And then after everything is said and done within the dust settles and it's disproven, then it becomes a conspiracy theory. Why? Because it has not been proven or is incapable of being proven. Same with scandals. We don't know really that it is a scandal until after it happens, until after we get some concrete evidence and some truth and information. Now, with this election cycle, we know it's scandalous on both sides. Her shenanigans, everything that she's done, we've warned people about her. And it's not that hard to do because she puts everything right out there as if to say, yeah, this is what I'm going to do. I dare you to stop me. And then with Trump, where he's scandalous on this is, I'm going to build a wall and make Mexico pay for it. Okay, how? Oh, I'm going to do this. How? He says he's going to do all of these things, and he is enticing people into following him, persuading them to do this, and yet he's incapable of producing because he has not stated how he's going to produce.
And it's because he doesn't want to produce. It's because he doesn't care about what he's doing. It's because he is just there to be a plant. That's what he's been this whole time. And, it comes down to basically this is a personality contest. That's what this election boils down to. And that is the very sort of thing that we should try and attempt to avoid whenever possible. And here's where, you were mentioning that it was, with the conspiracy theories that it's sometimes difficult or impossible to prove. Well, we have here that a lawmaker claims that Clinton left classified documents in a Chinese hotel room. So apparently Hillary had left some important documents in a Chinese hotel room. According to Morgan Chalfant at the Washington Free Beacon, Representative Devin Nunes, a Republican from California and chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, wrote a letter to James Comey saying that Hillary left classified documents in a Chinese hotel room. Now, what's odd about this is that Representative Nunes didn't elaborate any further than this. And, that falls right into the same type of problem that you mentioned with Trump, in that he is not really saying how he's going to do these things, or he doesn't draw it out to have proof. It's one thing to have a great weight of evidence from a plethora of circumstantial evidence that draws a reasonable inference. But all we have here is the statement that she has done it in a letter. Now, would I put it past her? Would I put it past her? Absolutely not. That sounds exactly like something that Hillary Rotten Clinton would do. But do I have enough confidence in Representative Nunes to just believe it carte blanche without any type of elaboration on proof? No. To be quite honest, no.
If this particular scenario was being argued in court, and you were the one making that case, bringing it up in this and that,
it'd be hearsay.
It'd
be hearsay.
Well, I would call for an objection, speculation, because that's what it is. It is absolutely.
Well, it's not even speculation. It's hearsay. How did you hear it? Well, it's a statement offered for the veracity of the statement without proof. That is hearsay. That is absolute hearsay. It's not one of the exceptions to the rules of hearsay, and therefore it would be inadmissible in court. And the other thing that that we need to mention here is, why didn't Nunes come forward with this information before, during the last investigation, before it had been closed? As we had said, timing can be everything in politics, and this seems to give the Dems a powerful weapon to be used in their propaganda spin campaign to try and salvage Hillary's prospects for president. Look, there's less than a week away before the American people, the true ultimate wielders of popular sovereignty in this once thriving and flourishing representative republic of ours, head to the ballot box to cast their decision. I think the fact that this has come out now may have been done, as Steve Deace had kind of reasoned in his recent Conservative Review article, that this may have been done to try and throw it for Trump. But I think it's too little too late. And again, the timing of it all just gets to me. I'm not trying to defend Hillary Clinton. I think she's a god-awful lady. I can't even call her a lady. She's a god-awful troll. That's what she is.
Babylon.
And the whole thing is that what we see here is that the FBI just suddenly brings this back up. We have uncorroborated claims that she had it in a hotel room. Okay, if you're going to make those claims, back it up. Because, in fact, I think that's the greatest problem that we have in the modern arena of American politics, is that we go forth and we make all sorts of claims, but we don't ever back it up with proof. So it's like a bumper sticker slogan without any meaningful meat behind it. There's no true evidence that you can concretely point to and say, all right, that proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that she did that.
What else is this also gives them ammunition for in the Hillary camp is something that she loves to use. She's used it numerous times before, plausible deniability. Because we have this with this Huma wiener Abedin. And yes, folks, I'm intentionally mispronouncing her name because she's not fitting or respectable enough for me to pronounce her name correctly. With her being MIA at this point, at this juncture, it gives Hillary the absolute opportunity to say, plausible deniability. Is it plausible that could have happened? Sure, but I'm denying all responsibility for it. I'm going to plead the fifth. And she does it all the time. She has done it while testifying in front of Congress. She's put other people who were part of the initial investigation in the Benghazi up for it. And I can't remember the lady's name, but she says, I'm taking the fifth, and then I think we discussed this before.
Lois Lerner. Yeah,
she's I'm taking the fifth, and then she opens her mouth and starts talking. Well, guess what?
That means she's waived it. That means she has waived
Absolutely.
the Fifth Amendment privilege against self-incrimination. Yeah.
Exactly. So, and I think she did that on purpose because that adds to, again, the plausible deniability of Hillary. Because she can say, well, she took the Fifth, but yeah, she opened up and she did this anyways. She said, how can I even trust her? You know, it's plausible that these things happen, but I'm denying responsibility because she's not credible. So they will set each other up and they will take the fall for each other. They'll eat their own in order to save their own hides. And again, bringing this right back into this election being scandalous, why isn't Trump bringing any of this stuff up? Why isn't he saying, look, this is a ploy. All of this stuff, she's duping you guys. She's duping everybody into this. And again, we have another scandalous thing with Trump saying he's going to put Hillary in jail. We mentioned this on the last episode we did together. If you are expected or seeking, perceivably seeking, the office of the presidency, whose sole job is to execute the laws of the land, if you don't even understand the simple definition between prison and jail, you should not even be able to take the reins of holding that office. And I think that is completely done on purpose on his part. And a lot of people will make exceptions or excuses for him and say, well, you know, he's this and this. Yeah, he misspoke. I'm tired of people misspeaking. I'm tired of people getting a pass and defense is made for them. If you don't know what the hell you're talking about, don't open your damn mouth. That's just what it boils down to. I'm sick and tired of all this crap.
Yeah, and I think the vast majority of the American electorate is sick and tired of it as well. And here's the other thing. Again, going back to Huma's lawyer now blames the wiener. Karen Dunn claims that Abedin did not know that her emails were on her husband's computer and that he is the one that has been going forth with this. Apparently, he's been singing like a canary to the FBI. Of course, I find this a little suspect. When a lot of this was going down, Huma was already estranged from the wiener. So I can't imagine that she would have maintained emails on his laptop. And again, if these are highly sensitive documents or classified documents, what were they doing on her husband's laptop anyway? Why was she checking that on an unofficial channel? Why were they being saved on that laptop? That is a huge breach of protocol. And recall, there is a double standard with all of this, because if you remember that David Petraeus was essentially forced to face all of these criminal charges for giving access to classified or highly sensitive documents to his mistress, and it's happened to various others. But again, there's this separate niche carved out for Hillary, meaning that a whole separate code of law apparently applies to her, and that's just not who we are, either as a nation or as a people. It's completely diametrically opposed to all that we hold near and dear and all that we advocate for here. But what's interesting here is, so all of this is just so fantastical, it seems to come out of the pages of fiction or some dark comedy spoof of an espionage thriller. But as they say, fact is oftentimes stranger than fiction, and I think this represents a perfect example of that. But it gets better. Miss Dunn, who is a former lawyer in the Obama White House and had been Clinton's former communications director when she was in the Senate, has also contended that Huma didn't learn about this until Friday. I know we had mentioned that. So here's what it comes down to. Either Huma is incompetent or is lying, and neither one of those paints a rosy or pretty picture for the Clinton camp. It's one of those things that Madam Clinton is just not going to be able to escape from, and it's just, again, par for the course of what we're seeing in this disastrous 2016 presidential election cycle. We are just allowing all of the worst elements to come to the forefront here and essentially dominate the entire electoral process. And it's making a joke out of it. It's making a mockery of our sacred processes here as we go along, and that is, it's lamentable, it's tragic, it's unacceptable.
You know, with this lawyer, and she makes the comment that, well, she didn't know about it until this last Friday, and immediately jumps from that to blaming the wiener. Now, folks, you cannot make this stuff up. You just can't do it. It's impossible. It sounds like to me that with her past, from what you've just divulged, just a little tidbit what you divulged on Miss Dunn, that she's had some nefarious connections, and
she has
more so than what people would be led to believe. And I'm willing to bet, Randy, that if we actually dug into her background, we could probably pull up a whole dossier on her and write a book and sell it and make money off of it. Now, with the statements that she's making, instantly jumping to blaming the wiener, this is something that our good friend, and I say that term, or use that term very loosely, Jessica Ginn would do. It's the same tactics. It's the exact same tactics. You have an issue with something, and then instantly you blame something else, or you bring something else into the fray and kind of make a hodgepodge or like a goulash type of scenario with it. With Jessica Ginn down in, I believe it was Texas A&M.
No, UT, or University of Texas.
University of Texas. Okay, sorry, A&M. Here's the thing: she has a problem with firearms being on campus. So what does she do to combat that? She brings rubberized phallic symbols to the protest. Why? It's the same. It's the same rationale utilized by our very, again, good friend, term which I use very loosely, Miss Ginn, that Miss Dunn is doing with blaming Tony A. Pendage. That, I mean, that's just what's happening. And they do this with reckless abandon. They do it because people gobble it up. They just open wide and let it just, slide right down their throat. It's appalling that people cannot say, wait a second, just stop everything. You're wanting to do this, this, and this, instead of actually doing what, you took an oath to uphold, protect, and defend, and to support. Instead of basing everything on that, following the rule of the law, you want to make excuses. Well, I think Ms. Dunn should forfeit her law license as well. Because I believe with this case, she's acting in an unethical and immoral fashion, at the very least.
Yeah, of course she is. And basically what she's doing is she's working there to try and basically control the
damage
narrative.
Control.
And it's more than just damage control. It's narrative control. Because as we've said on previous episodes of Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, that in politics, perceptions can oftentimes matter more than reality, even if they're erroneous perceptions. And so what they're trying to do is, by blaming the wiener, that automatically does a couple of things. First of all, it frames the entire scenario to where it's, look, nobody likes the wiener. Because we know that even Joe Biden came out in front of the cameras of the rank and file for the graduates of Pavlov's School of Journalism for the salivating mainstream media and just instantly proclaimed that he didn't like the wiener. And this apparently went back to before the emails. The other thing that it does is it allows the war on women card to be drawn up again. Instantly, when you bring up the wiener and you bring up those negative connotations that attach with him, it makes it like Trump. Why? Because just, again, being everything, Trump had that video from 2005 come out, and now you instantly make that connection in your mind that, oh, well, it's because it's Wiener that did that, and oh my goodness, Wiener is just like Trump in that they both think they can grab women by blank or send them photographs of themselves or do whatever sort of nefarious, scandalous conduct that they think's okay, but that they're essentially cut from the same cloth, that they're not representing the American people, and it's not Huma's fault, it's this guy who's just like Trump. So you have that cognizant dissonance there, that connection of Wiener and Trump, and again, it allows Hillary to have plausible deniability. It draws it back to Trump. It creates a false narrative, and that is what the media will run with.
Sure. And the thing is, again, Trump is absolutely complicit with this.
Of course,
because look at some of the things that he's done, and again, a prime example of him creating and fear mongering is saying, well, if the rally goes bad and it's not going the way that I think it should, if I feel like I'm losing control, I just mentioned I'm going to build the wall and the place goes nuts. See, he is self-admitted to causing chaos. It's an absolute admission. Now, I wouldn't put it past Trump with this whole video of 2005. I wouldn't put it past him of his camp being the one releasing it in order to create more hysteria so that he can turn around and capitalize on it. After all, he is a Fabian. Contrary to popular belief, he absolutely is a Fabian because he exhibits the exact same mentality, the exact same characteristics, and the same actions that Fabians do. And Fabians, one of the greatest things that they've always been superb at is creating a crisis and then turning around and, oh, here we are, we're here, to rescue everybody. Remember, Cass Sunstein said, never let a good crisis go to waste.
Mm-hmm.
Things that Hitler...
They want to be able to redefine us, and they do that by using knee-jerk reactions when we are ramped up into a rawly emotional state. And that's one of the reasons why we have so oftentimes warned on previous episodes of Radio Aviation Excellence, The Wright Flyer, that we need to try and avoid being whipped up into such raw emotional frenzies, because it leaves us highly susceptible to the dark and twisted machinations of those nefarious forces that would go out of their way to try and debilitate the nation. And why do they want to debilitate it? So they can redefine it, so they can reshape it. Recall that when you look at Article 6, Clause 2 of our shared United States Constitution, it says in no uncertain terms that that is the supreme law of the land. And therefore, these things that they're wanting to force upon us, these things that they're wanting us to implement, are actually diametrically opposed to the clear and concise language contained within the Constitution, and therefore it is actually violative of the supreme law of the land. In other words, it is breaking the law. And they know that if they can change the way that we think about things, or if they can distract with these penultimate concerns, such as with, oh, it was Wiener that had done it, then they can avoid discussing the Constitution. Mm-hmm. And when you have people doing revisionist history in our institutions of higher learning from coast to coast and border to border, they're indoctrinating the up-and-coming generations, and indeed those generations which have yet to be born, so that they don't realize what the Constitution is, or that they erroneously begin to feel and buy into the fluff of it all, that the Constitution is quaint, antiquated, has no application to today, and it was written by racist, sexist, homophobic, Christian white men, that were privileged. And all of that is nonsense because it ignores the natural law tenets, which by their nature are timeless. Think back to the self-evident truths that our founding fathers spoke to in the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. And that means humanity, and that they are endowed by their creator with certain fundamental and unalienable, which just means inalienable or immutable rights, and that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Mm-hmm. But what we see here with either of the two candidates for the two mainstay political parties, have we heard any of them advocating for that? Have we heard any of them say anything that really lines up with that is coherent with the Constitution, or that they would admit that they would be restrained by the Constitution? I haven't. And the reason we haven't is because they did not say anything like that. They have just said, I will do this. We will do, me, I. We will all do this. And it's all expanding the scope of government, further distancing ourselves and divorcing ourselves from the true ultimate law of the land, the supreme law of the land, our Constitution.
I think the closest thing that they did with regards to anything with the Declaration of Independence was when they used it as a backdrop for one of the debates. I think it was the first debate or the second. I think it was
the first debate had the Declaration of Independence, or the Constitution. One of them had the Constitution. One of them had the Declaration.
Right. Point being, in either one of those debates, neither one of them talked about it.
Right.
They didn't talk about it. All he talked about was, oh, she did this, no, I didn't. Yes, you did. He did this, no, I didn't. Yes, you did. That's all it was. It was a bunch of slap and tickle, crap. Mm-hmm. And people, they sit there and they're drawn to it. Oh, Hillary won the debate. No, Trump won the debate. You have the talking heads like Sean Hannity with his best impersonation ever of Donald Trump doing that Fraulein comb over, sitting there. Oh, Trump did. You know what? Here's an idea, Sean Hannity. Shut the hell up. You and everybody else. Why don't you borrow Karl Rove's little whiteboard and smash it over your face? Because what it boils down to is you don't realize it yet, but you are irrelevant when it comes to these things. You've had issues before, during the whole Obama administration. Well, we have to stand in the Constitution. Obama's going to violate the Constitution. This, and this. Where's your constitutional statements and arguments now, Sean?
Well, he ignores them now because it would harm the candidate that he has, and because it's not the candidate he is supporting or would harm the candidate he's supporting, it's automatically a bad thing. I mean, look at the way that he basically went out there and prostituted himself to say that WikiLeaks was never wrong. And you don't have to go far back into history to see where his tune was totally 180, the opposite of what he's saying now. It's just par for the course with him, and it's that same sort of nonsensical drivel that has alienated and disenfranchised huge swaths of the American electorate. That is it any wonder that the American people are getting fed up with this? Is it any wonder that there are so many Americans who just say off for rook it when it comes to the way that our electoral process is working, when it seems that nobody's doing anything to stand up for the values that we have had for time-honored and well-established periods of time? And that's the problem. We are so disconnected from all that matters that we don't believe in anything anymore. And when you don't believe in anything, you fall for everything. Mm-hmm. That is what Trump was banking on. And perhaps that is the only good thing that we can take away from this disastrous fiasco of a 2016 election cycle, is that we have seen exposed for all to see those who were charlatans all along. People like Lush Bimbo, people like Michael Wiener Savage, Sean Hannity, Laura Inkampf, little
Eden
orphan
Pirro.
Yap Coulter, Coulter, all of those people, they were using this for a profit motive. They weren't being dedicated to the movement, conservative movement. They were just in it for themselves. And so they were lying. And that's what it shows. Trump is basically a reverse Midas touch. Everything he touches turns to excrement. And that's what he's done. He is literally trying to drive a wedge into the conservative movement to obliterate it, and then that leaves it open for Hillary. Look, if we had any other candidate other than Trump, it wouldn't even be close. But here we are. We're running neck and neck right now. The race is tightened up. Why? Because Hillary is deplorable and Trump is disgusting. That's what we have. The double D's of crap.
And again, you can look at any other candidate aside from Trump, and any one of them could have beaten Hillary Clinton. Any one of them. And again, the GOP has failed. They put up this milquetoast progressive, this coif in shining armor, and rested all of their hopes and dreams on his shoulders, and he's going to save us. Again, I'm reminded of those two yapping nitwits from Novi, Michigan, that, we've been waiting for someone like Trump. He's a godsend. He's Trump's a god, and we've been waiting for him to come back. And shut up. Why don't you go put on some brand new Nike shoes, put a white robe on, and dive headfirst into a tub full of Kool-Aid and wait for the comet to show up? Because that's what you sound like.
It's a cult of personality. It's a cult of personality. That's what it's boiled down to.
Where's Marshall Applewhite when you need him? Oh, wait a second.
Dead, hopefully.
Dead, yeah. But, I think he was reincarnated as Ron Paul. So, it's the same logic. And a lot of people are saying, well, I'm a Ron Paul supporter, and Ron Paul always talks about the Constitution. Ron Paul has violated the Constitution just as many times, if not more, that we don't know about yet, that hasn't been discovered, as any other politician that claims that they're all for the Constitution, but yet have never proven such.
And that's the major difference between Ted Cruz. He actually does have a proven track record of stepping up and fighting for the Constitution, and has done it for all of his political career. And that's something that was ignored. It's something that Mike Pence ignored. We saw the way that he was yucking it up when Trump was out there saying that Rick Perry should run against Cruz. And of course, there's been a piece now saying that Rick Perry has been talking to McCall, or whatever that guy's name is, who has an F with the Liberty score from Conservative Review, to try and primary out Cruz in the 2018 Senate election. It just goes to show that the Lion Branch Trumpidians are of this cultist mentality. They are trying to essentially create groupthink. They don't want people to think individually for themselves. They don't want people to have the ability to go out and make cogent, tangent arguments in and of themselves and of their own fruition. But the other thing that it brings up is, we've talked about Hillary's scandals and a little bit about Trump's, but you realize that the Democrats have sued Trump in 4 states for voter intimidation. According to Reuters, Democrats have sued Trump for voter intimidation in 4 states. And they're Nevada, they are in Ohio, in Arizona, and Pennsylvania. And they have literally brought a suit here. And here's what they say. Andy Sullivan, who wrote this piece for Reuters, says that these Democrat officials sued Trump in battleground states, in 4 of them, the ones I mentioned, on Monday. They were seeking to shut down a poll-watching effort they said was designed to harass minority voters during the election. I don't think it was originally intended to or designed to intimidate minorities. I think it was to go after those of us who won't vote for Trump. It's to go after everybody. And again, this is where the Democrats get everything wrong. They always delve first head over heels in for voter intimidation via minorities. It's always race-based. It's always centered around identity politics, when I think this is even more nefarious than that. This is just trying to destroy the American system of polity. They are essentially trying to replace the proper scope and application and format and design of our government to make it to where we have an autocracy, which of course the United States of America was never designed to be. It goes against all that we hold near and dear. But it goes deeper than this. It goes deeper than this because we know that Trump's own staff personnel had said that they would use voter suppression tactics. And in fact, 4 days ago, Pence went on to, I believe it was MSNBC, and said that he found this offensive. But what he found most offensive is that the media would report that a campaign staffer had used the term voter suppression. He also claimed that this isn't the approach Trump's campaign has taken. Now, folks, we here at Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, always say don't take what we're saying on face value. So I'm actually going to bring up Pence saying this on the air for, out of his own mouth so that we can then review it and discuss it for ourselves, because I think it's of that great importance. So let me go ahead and cue that up, and then we will discuss it from there. So here we go.
Number one, like I said, I haven't read the article, and I've never heard anybody in this campaign talk that way. I mean, frankly, it was, it was offensive to me to hear that being reported in the news, because that's just not the approach Donald Trump has taken. To this campaign. It's not the approach we're taking. We're reaching out to every American. I think one of the remarkable things about this campaign is how many independents, I mean, you look at some of these polls, how many independents have been drawn to Donald Trump's message about breaking gridlock in Washington, D.C.
No, wait a minute.
Why does that matter? Why is that what he puts up? Because it's not true. That's what Trump does. Trump goes out, he lies. Trump has said that he would punch people in the face, and we'll bring that clip up later because it's important to remind people. But what he was offended about was not so much that this staffer said it. I mean, yes, he recalibrated what he was saying to have it fit that, but what it was literally doing was saying that he was offended that the media brought this up. Now, that's the last thing that he should have been offended about. What he should have been offended about is that it was even brought up by the campaign staff at all. That's a glaring thing. That plays directly into the hands of the frothing at the mouth Fabian socialists to sit there and claim that they are using this this narrative to say, look, the Republican war on minorities and women, blah, 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 it's all real. And unfortunately, it is essentially giving credibility to the left. And we can't afford that. We just can't afford that because we're already going into this downhill. There are more registered Democrats than there are Republicans. There are more leftists essentially running out there. Some of them are probably zombies, walking dead voters, but that's what we're facing. Well, and he's made it worse.
This is what I took from it. I'm willing to bet that Mike Pence's tune was completely different during Obama's two elections, during the election cycles of that. Look at all the voter intimidation that occurred there with those two elections. The use of the Black Panthers to show up at polling places and physically prevent people from voting. That was never brought up in the mainstream media. Fox News touched on it a little bit, but this is the thing about Fox News. Again, they're only going to report on things and put things that will fit their agenda. When you have people like Hannity, will fit their agenda. But see, I'm willing to bet he was offended. Mike Pence was probably offended because it wasn't brought up in the news back then. But now he's offended because it is mentioned. I mean, he should be offended, like you said, that the campaign staffers would even bring up or mention something like that at all.
Mm-hmm.
But again, this fits right into the narrative of, well, it's okay for us to talk about it, but, nobody else is supposed to know about it, so that offends me. Really? But yet, don't they call for transparency and all these different things like getting rid of regulations? We're going to get rid of regulations that, are crippling small businesses. How? See, you're offended that these things are happening, but you're offended because people are being made aware of these things, but you don't have any way to stop it or to solve that problem because you don't have any intentions of solving those problems. You say all of this stuff, but you have no solutions. And again, Randy, I think this is what sets us apart from not only the mainstream media, but the vast majority of individuals in this country. This is what true individualism is really all about. See, those people, they talk about, yeah, Trump's going to build a wall. Okay, how? Well, here's a solution. This is the problem we have. We have immigration laws not being followed and enforced. So we have basically an alienation of people coming in, all these illegal aliens coming in. Here's a simple solution. Enforce the laws. Don't revise them to do this. Don't tweak them to fit your agenda. How about enforce the laws and execute the laws faithfully that are already on the books? Because that is the sole job of the President of the United States outside of protecting this country. And protecting this country is indicative and inclusive of enforcing the laws. You cannot protect the country if you don't enforce the laws to prevent people coming here illegally. You are failing and derelict in your duty if you don't do that. Obama is nothing more than a derelict geriatric wannabe who is not only just, not executed the laws or enforced them and put measures in place to enforce them. He's simply flat out ignored them. In fact, he's told the executive branch and the Department of Justice and all their agencies, law enforcement agencies under that control, to look the other way, to not enforce the laws. Now, if that's going on, how could anybody think that Trump is going to be any different than Obama or any different than Hillary? Because there's nothing of substance there in his campaign that he's put forth that shows that he's any different than those two. And people want to give us, crap about it, and they want to give us grief about it. Well, wake the hell up. Because there's nothing
let's look at it this way. We hear the voter suppression stuff, but couldn't Trump's past statements indicate suppression? We've harped on his calls for violence in the past. Structure. Yep, but taken in context with the lawsuit filed against him in Pennsylvania, Nevada, Arizona, and Ohio, I think we need to re-examine the evidence. Recall that Trump said he'd like to punch a protester in the face during a campaign event in Nevada back in February. And I've got the video clip of this, folks, and I know we've played it before, but it is so important that we need to play it again just so that we refresh our memories, because it really is of that utmost importance. But, if they're going to talk about voter suppression, then there is a real area where it was. And isn't it interesting that this little speech that he gave happened in one of the states where this lawsuit was going. So here we go. Let's cue that up now.
Honestly, I hate to see that. Here's a guy throwing punches, nasty as hell, screaming at everything else when we're talking. And he's walking out, and we're not allowed, the guards are very gentle with him. He's walking out like big high fives, smiling, laughing. Like to punch him in the face, I'll tell you.
I'd like to punch him in the face. That's what he said. That was what he said in Nevada. Is that not suppressive? Would that not be considered a type of suppression? It's interesting, again, to note that this happened in one of the states that's involved in the lawsuit. Mm-hmm. So by his own words, deeds, and actions, Trump has added fuel to the fire here. Trump has contributed to that, and it shows no signs of improving at any point in the foreseeable future. And that is disgraceful. Again, it goes back to what we've been warning about here at Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, for well over a year. It tells us that what Trump is doing is essentially falling into the line that has been reiterated again and again and again, that the Republicans are mean-spirited, the Republicans are bullies, the Republicans are this, the Republicans are that. It's all a bunch of drivel. And unfortunately, he has gone forth and done this stuff so much that it allows the narrative to sink in. That's exactly what the frothing at the mouth Fabian socialist leftists have been pining for. They have been looking for such an opportunity to try and make this dirt stick on Republicans. And because we have allowed him to become the nominee for our party, he essentially satisfies all of those erroneous, stereotypical caricatures that the left is attempting to pigeonhole the right with in America.
There's an old adage. Mm-hmm. And before I explain what the adage is, Randy, and when I say this, you're going to know what I'm talking about. See, Donald Trump is a fool. The people that blindly support him and think he is this messianic figure that's going to save everybody and save this nation, they're all fools. Now, the adage is simply this: it is better to be perceived a fool than to open your mouth and remove all doubt. What Trump has done, he has removed all doubt, so it is highly doubtful now that Trump is not a fool, and his blind following supporters are not fools. It's very doubtful that they don't fit that definition as being a fool. When you have his supporters showing up at Hillary Clinton's campaign rallies, drowning her out so that she can't make her speeches and whatnot. Again, we're not defending Hillary, but where's the modicum of civility here? Where's the civil discourse on with our country? Trump, it's okay for Trump to have all these outrageous get-togethers, these violent upheavals, and inciting violence against people, condoning it, telling people to take them out on a stretcher. If you got fruit or you got anything at them, this guy wants to do this or these people want to do this, shut them up, drag them out back, whatever the case is. He's condoning all of that. That's foolishness. Absolute foolishness. Because it takes away from anything and everything you want to put up there as being morally, ethically, and constitutionally correct with regard to that position you're vying for. I'm not going to say trying to get elected to, because he has no inclination of winning. He really doesn't. He may say he does. He doesn't. He's just stringing people along. Again, his whole campaign is nothing more than a QVC commercial on methamphetamines. That's all it is. with Billy Mays at the helm. Okay? So when you behave like this and you condone these things happening, you cannot be believed in anything that you say. You're doing one thing and saying another, and you're contradicting yourself completely. And see what it is. This is him being consistently inconsistent with things, as we've always said he was. Now, on the other side with Hillary, I can't, right off the top of my head, recall anything to where Hillary has incited any violence or condoned people being done this way or done that way, because she's smarter than that. If Hillary wants somebody out of the way, she'll do it quietly, and it won't be found out for a number of years. That, if you don't believe me, just ask Vince Foster. Allegedly.
Well, you can't. He's dead.
Exactly my point.
And he shot himself kind of funny in a way that it wouldn't work for him. But here's something interesting that we need to hit. Meanwhile, we see that a former Russian spy has says that Putin wants Trump to win. According to Mark Hinch at The Hill, a former Russian spy told the FBI that Russia wants to cultivate Trump. The ex-spy said that Putin liked Trump because he could blackmail him to get beneficial, preferential bargaining positions for Russia. What's worse, the ex-spy claims that there's an established exchange of information between the Trump campaign and the Kremlin for mutual benefit. This again points to a major external influence and threat to our entire electoral process. Recall that the Russians offered to provide election monitors to prevent fraud in the U.S. elections. Folks, this doesn't bode well for our sovereignty. Trump is weakening the United States by reaching to Russia, a nation with whom there's no love lost between us. And who can forget that Trump actually went for it and had asked the Russians to hack into Hillary Clinton's emails. Recall that he said that. In fact, you don't have to take my word for it. I've got a video clip here that I'm going to pull up right now where Trump said that, and then we'll draw it back to what was being said here with that Russian spy. So let me go ahead and get the screen share up, and then we will play that and discuss it in further detail from there. So here we go. Well, we would be going, except it doesn't want to. Let me do this real quickly. There we go. Now I think it'll work. Let me switch back over. And
I will tell you this. Russia, if you're listening, I hope you're able to find the 30,000 emails that are missing. I think you will probably be rewarded mightily by our press. Let's see if that happens. That'll be next. Yes, sir.
There you had it. What did that do, folks? Was that something that would suggest that he's saying, Russia, are you listening? Apparently they were, because he has that mutual beneficial relationship with Putin where they've been exchanging information. You know, folks, you can't make this stuff up. This is truly dangerous and detrimental for our entire system of polity. And this is why we have said that Trump is just as much of a danger as Hillary Clinton, because he is willing to compromise the national security of the United States for his own personal gain. Of course, folks, this from the outset has been about him, the way that he could enrich himself or to set his sons up to run for office or to try and make money off of it. Because if you recall, back in 2000, he said that he would be the first ever presidential candidate to make money off of running for president. Who says that? Who wants to go out there and make money off of running for president of the United States? That's not what someone who gives a damn about the country would do. It's not what somebody who gives a damn about the country would say. That is what a charlatan, a con artist, a snake oil salesman would say in order to bamboozle the people, in order to essentially gain for himself at the expense of the true ultimate wielders of popular sovereignty, we the people.
You know, the Democrats, with this whole lawsuit regarding the intimidation of the voters and the voter suppression, God only knows where that's going to go. But here's an idea. This is something. I'm just going to throw them a bone. Why don't you guys file a lawsuit against Trump on extortion? Because he has the motive. There's premeditation there. He said it just like you mentioned back in 2000. If he ran for president, he would be the first candidate to ever make money off of, seeking the presidency. That right there is grounds enough. And I'm sure you could probably dig up, all the final tally up to date thus far of all of these bobbleheads that he's been selling, or these dinners with Trump that he's been selling for people to donate money to them. I mean, it's pure, unadulterated extortion. Absolute extortion. Now, when it comes to Russia, I don't know who Putin is. I don't know this. I haven't had any dealings with Russia yet. You back in 2013, was the Miss Universe pageant was conducted over there in Moscow, and your daughter Ivanka has little, play dates with Putin's daughter. But you don't know. Again, we mentioned this before. You don't know anything about Putin. You never met the man. You don't know anything. Yet you allow your daughter, no matter how old she is, to chum around with Putin's daughter. But you never met him?
Yeah.
There's something wrong with that.
Well, you know what it fully demonstrates? You know what it fully demonstrates is that we can't trust a thing that he says.
He's a fraud.
Recall that those pushing for a tyranny of false unity say that we can trust Trump because of the Supreme Court. In fact, that's one of the big rallying cries they have, is that we have to have, excuse me, folks, we have to have Trump because he is going to ensure that the Supreme Court stays conservative or becomes conservative or what have you. That is why we cannot allow Hillary Clinton in. And unfortunately, when you can't trust what he says, and when he does all of these erratic things that don't make any sense whatsoever, we see that it's just that he has this long, well-established track record of failing to tell the truth. And here's something that we can use to back it up. He claimed back in 2004 that he voted for George W. Bush. Then he appeared on Imus in the morning back in 2009 and said that he didn't vote for the dimwit Bush. And I've actually got the soundbite from this, folks, that I want to key up just so that we hear that for ourselves. And then when that's done, we'll come back and discuss it a little bit further in detail. So let me go ahead and switch over and get this going. So here we go.
It's proposing a stimulus package, spending package that they passed. Somebody's proposing for health care and raising taxes and all that stuff. Looking at the overall picture, does it look like something to you that's going to work?
Well, first of all, he inherited a total mess, and you know how I feel about Bush, and I think you got to feel that way also. But he inherited. I
never voted for him, Don.
Well, you're good then. I didn't either, by the way. But you're good. I mean, I just thought that guy was a dimwit. You know, you looked at him, and he just didn't look like he was all there. And so, you could ring that doorbell, and nobody was going to answer that door. Well, you look at his eyes. I mean, he'd make a speech, and you'd look at him, and you'd say, does he even know what he's reading? I mean, this guy was a horrible president. And so Obama inherited a mess. And frankly, you know, he's going about it a certain way, and he's going to be raising a lot of taxes. He's putting a lot of money out there.
Oh. What did that sound like to you? What does that sound like to you?
It sounds like he was playing the part of an appeaser for Obama, saying he inherited a mess. But here's the thing. See, this is what people don't realize, okay? And I've tried to explain this to individuals on numerous occasions. Our election cycle is every 4 years. Now, we know how slow the government works with everything. When they really want to, you know, crack the hammer down on people and deprive them of their rights. But given the fact that it's a 4-year election cycle, Obama inherited a mess. Well, let's see. So did George W. Bush. He inherited the mess from the Clinton regime. Everybody says, oh, we had a great economy under the Clinton. Yeah, if you forget about the, what was it, $2.3 billion missing from the Department of Defense by the hands of Sandy Hamburglar Burger. So how can you say we had a good economy when there was $2.3 billion unaccounted for, which later was found out shortly, I think either before or after 9/11 happened. So who inherited the mess? Because see, what it was a venereal excrement storm that carried over from the Clinton administration all the way through the George W. Bush administration into Obama's administration, and now it's just gotten deeper and deeper because of this.
Right. And then the way that Trump was going out there and basically saying that George W. Bush was a nitwit, it again, while Bush is by no means what we would consider a stalwart conservative, he certainly is more conservative than what Don Trumpolini is. And it reminds me of something that Trump said in this election. Recall that he had said that it is the Republican Party, not the Conservative Party. Well, in fact, don't just take my word for it, folks. Let's actually cue up the man saying it himself, because, you know, you just have to recall these things because they're there. They're prominent. They cannot be ignored. And unfortunately, that is what Trump and the media are wanting you to do, is ignore that. Trump has been a media darling all along from the primary process in the hopes of getting him to this position, and then they turn against him. But here is what he said, if you recall. I'm going to go ahead and cue this up now.
Paul Ryan's different. He's the Speaker of the House. He's the highest-ranking elected Republican in the country right now. He's the chairman of the convention. Back in March, you said he'd pay a price if he didn't get along with you. What is that price?
Well, we're going to see what happens. He wants to meet. He'd like to meet, and I think we're meeting on Thursday, and we'll just see what happens. It's just more drama, but I think it's a mistake not to do this. We want to bring the party together. Does the party have to be together? Does it have to be unified? I'm very different than everybody else, perhaps, that's ever run for office. I actually don't think so. I think that
it doesn't have to be
unified.
No,
I don't think so. I think it would be better if it were unified. I think it would be there would be something good about it, but I don't think it actually has to be unified in the traditional sense. I'm going to do what I have to do. I have millions of people that voted for me because I have strong borders, because I want strong trade. I want good trade. I want trade. I don't want to be an isolationist, but what's happening with China, what's happening with Japan, what's happening with Mexico, they're just absolutely eating our lunch. It's a shame. It's terrible. So I have to stay true to my principles also.
But what are those principles? He claims that he is a conservative, and then it was right after that that he said that, recall, this is the Republican Party, not the Conservative Party. And again, folks, what that is, what all of that is Trump lying. Trump trying to do what he can to basically ensure that his positions are well established and protected, and that he doesn't have to care about what he says or does. That's what it comes down to. And, you know, one of the lessons that we can take away from this entire electoral process is that neither one of these candidates represents the American people. We have been hoodwinked, and there's no other way to put it. This is why we have warned you not to allow yourselves to be forced into a raw emotional frenzy. Because again, these frothing at the mouth Fabian socialist leftists, people like Donald Trump and many of his loudest acolytes, they are the ones that will go out of their way to try and force this nation into an untenable situation, to try and fundamentally, irreparably, and decisively redefine who we are as a nation and a people. And as a result, this is why we say that we can't, in good conscience, vote for the man. But we are not going to vote for Hillary either. That, again, shoots down this whole erroneous drivel that is part of that erroneous conclusion of those who push for a tyranny of false unity, that if you vote for anyone other than Trump, you're voting for Hillary, that it just doesn't work.
Well, sorry to cut you off, but I need to say this, and I want to make this adamantly clear to everybody. And I'm going to give one of the primary reasons why I refuse to vote for Trump. And it's based on his whole fear-mongering thing. We talked about the Supreme Court. That's one of his things, his biggest pushes. We can't allow Hillary to stack the court in her favor. Well, this kind of piggybacks off of him saying this is not the conservative party, it's the Republican Party. If you look at the Supreme Court and the status that it is now, with the individuals that are sitting on that bench now.
Well, yeah, it's fully divorced itself from what the court was originally intended to be. It's taken itself away from the Constitution. That's the problem. Well, we have divorced ourselves from the Constitution.
Right, but it sits with this. There's only one individual that sits on that court. Clarence Thomas, who I would actually define as being a conservative. None of the other judges. People say, well, John Roberts is conservative. No, he's not. If he was, he would have read that ACA bill that when it was challenged in the court, and he would have said, yeah, well, it's unconstitutional. Clarence Thomas said it was unconstitutional in his dissenting opinion. He said we can't allow this to happen. They don't have any authority to even enact legislation like this because it's violative of the Constitution. Therefore, it is not made in pursuance of it, which it means it cannot exist and is void ab initio. So
right, and that's exactly what's going to happen each and every time, and that's the way it should happen. And that's the problem. When they said that it wasn't violating the Anti-Injunction Act, and then because that if it were a tax, it would be thrown out via the Anti-Injunction Act, and then to say that it is a tax to make it constitutional, that shows you the type of gymnastics, the intellectual gymnastics, the logical gymnastics that they have to do in order to keep putting makeup on this pig to make it work. And it doesn't work. And that's the thing. When the courts act in that way, they are not keeping in line with the powers that are expressly enumerated unto them by Article 3, and therefore they are not acting in a lawful manner. And again, this is why it is so important for us to foster that fluent and working knowledge and understanding of our shared United States Constitution, and thereby our fundamental and inalienable God-given rights. In so doing, that's how you are able to see what they are doing, when they are doing it, and how it violates your rights. Because again, without your rights, you're left with nothing. Your rights are the most important, sacred thing that you have. That's why George Mason had concluded that no legitimate authority, earthly government, could abridge or belittle or encroach upon those rights without due process under the law, meaning notice and a hearing, because it's that important. It has to be done so that we are protecting the rights of the individual. And unfortunately, neither one of these candidates are of the type of which I would say that they are looking out for our rights. In fact, they're looking to obliterate our rights. Trump has a track record of that with eminent domain in the past. Hillary has her time in government trying to establish Hillary care. All of that works to the great detriment of who? the true ultimate wielders of popular sovereignty, we the people. So that's why we say vote your conscience. That's why we say look into this for yourself. See for yourself what it is. Gain that fluent and working knowledge and understanding of our shared United States Constitution. That is the valuable message that we will continue to convey here at Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer. Now, with that said, it is time for us to begin our descent. I'm going to go ahead and send the flight attendant back for one last round of alcohol. Folks, she's not going to create a scandal. You would create the scandal by drinking too much alcohol. As always, I'm your captain, Randy Wright, and I've been joined by my first officer, Jeremy Grapington. Folks, we'd like to thank you for choosing to fly the Wright Flyer. We also invite you to leave any questions, comments, or concerns you may have either here on our YouTube page or our Google Plus page or our Facebook page. And on top of that, we invite you to follow us at Twitter with the Twitter handle at Radio Aviation EX. One more time, folks, that's at Radio Aviation EX. And there you will find the personal Twitter accounts of both yours truly and Jeremy. You will also find the Blogspot account where we're putting up the audio-only versions of the show as well as the video so that you have one-stop shop basically there for all of your listening needs so that you can check it out on your own time and at your leisure. And then there is the Cafe Press account. Jeremy, tell them a little bit about the Cafe Press account.
Well, I do have to say that we do have some scandalously good deals on there regarding a whole slew of different things. Some things that, well, if you own them and display them, people would, you know, in the light of people like Sean Wannity would say that, well, you're scandalous. So let's give them something. They want scandals. Let's give them something to be scandalous about and give them something to talk about regarding a scandal. Don your Wright Flyer Radio Aviation Excellence paraphernalia, whether it's a shirt, tie, hoodie, sweatshirt, cap, bumper sticker, buttons, pins, whatever the case is, or even the party favors, including our shot glasses and drinking glasses. First class logo, traditional logo, your pick, your choice. We will not create it to be a scandal if you choose one or the other or both.
Right. And you see, you just give us a little bit of support, folks, and support yourself and enjoy it. It's, after all, the holidays coming up really quickly. So there is something there for everyone to enjoy. And if it's not in the description of the show, I'll go ahead and add that once we finish up here. So go ahead and take a look at that, folks, and give us a little bit of support. We will see you again next time. Please do take care.